Senator Fairfax, Democrat, Chap Petersen. Hey, Chap, good to have you with us, sir.
John, great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, Republicans better get their book bags because they just got schooled yesterday. Dick Saslaw, the Godfather. Dick Saslaw, they said he was going to get overthrown. They said he was too old. They said he was losing his spring in his step. They said, well, Tommy Norman, he teaches law at Williamsburg, makes $150,000, and here comes Dick Saslaw. And you guys outmaneuvered the Republicans. I mean, it was unbelievable. Game, set, match. Tell everybody what happened.
Well, I don't know how smart we are, but I think in the short term, effectively what happened was we went into session, and as you probably know, it was a redistricting session with sort of a Supreme Court component to it, and there was only, I believe, 4 bills that have been filed for redistricting. They were all Democratic bills, and I think it was quite apparent just from the opening bell that no substantive changes were going to happen on redistricting, that the Republicans were going to hold hearings, but basically nothing was going to happen, and then they were going to call us back probably August 31, and we discussed that in our caucus, and it was clear that if nothing was going to happen, it was much more advantageous for us to just adjourn, sine die, and let the courts sort this out, and that's what we did.
But now, in order to adjourn, you got to have a majority for that, right? And you're in the minority. You're down 21-19. So
I know it's like a magic trick. How did we do it?
How did you do that? And the other thing is, you blindsided Tommy. I don't think he ever saw this coming. So how did you guys pull it off, and how did you cloak it in such a surprise move?
Well, I Dick and Donald, they had thought about this ahead of time, and we had a couple weeks going into the session, and I think, again, if there had been a Republican bill that had been filed and we knew that there was going to be some legislation that was going to be substantively discussed, that would have been one thing, but it was clear that there was no Republican bill filed, and therefore there was going to be no bill coming out. I mean, I was under no illusions that my plan was going to come out of the P&E committee.
Right.
So apparently somebody at some point had a conversation with Senator Watkins and said, look, we don't want to be stuck around all of August, looking at each other, waiting for something to happen. Once we get to the end of the day's session, we're going to vote to adjourn, sine die. Will you vote with us? And he said yes, and there it is.
Bang, and that was it. And then that created a 2020 tie, and then, of course,
and then the governor broke it. Yeah, Lieutenant Governor broke it.
Northam broke it. So basically, look, let's take redistricting. In a way, this was going to be the outcome anyway, because regardless of what the Republicans did in the State House, McAuliffe was going to veto their map, right? And they didn't have 2/3 to override the veto in your state Senate. They might have done it in the House. Didn't matter. They don't have 2/3 in the Senate. So it would have ended up in the same place anyway, right?
Yeah, I look at it this way. And listen, if people want to criticize me or the Senate or what have you for kind of cutting the process short, that's fine. But we could all see the handwriting on the wall, and that was we were in a stalemate. There was nothing going to come out that the governor was going to sign. And I think both sides were kind of reconciled to taking their chances with the court. And that being the case, what's the point in, waiting around for 2 weeks? Let's just go ahead and adjourn now. And, there's a lot of people that are up for election, including myself, and we'll go back home and campaign, and we'll get a new assembly in January, and we'll, deal with it then. Although, I think in terms of redistricting, we're going to have a decision prior to that time.
Okay, now let's get to the Supreme Court justice. A few weeks ago, Terry McAuliffe naming Justice Jane Roush to the Supreme Court vacancy. Republicans complaining that he didn't consult with them. He didn't call Tommy Norman. He didn't call Bill Howell. He didn't go through the normal protocol that, say, Warner went through or that Tim Kaine went through. And so she gets in, and then the Republicans say, no, we got our own candidate, Alston, Justice Alston. And a lot of people thought, look, they got 21, Alston's in, Roush is out. That blew up in their face as well. How did you manage that one?
Well, that's, that one's a little bit more complicated than that. that's a story that's going to unfortunately limp along for several more months because, as you probably know, Justice Roush is an interim appointment, so it goes away after 30 days. And the governor says he's going to reappoint her, which, I guess he can do that. I guess he could keep reappointing her every 30 days. But at some point, there may be a question of constitutionality. And then, of course, we're going to go back into session in January, at which point, we'll have a new assembly, and we could get a completely new justice at that point. So that story is just unfortunately going to kind of limp along. Again, in terms of the Republicans, they clearly were united in the House. In the Senate, I think, again, Senator Watkins had some trepidation on just the way the process was being forced along. I don't really get into the sort of whole deal about who's disrespecting whom. The Assembly elects judges, and we all know that, and the governor's allowed to make recess appointments, which are just that, interim appointments. And they have to be reelected by the Assembly, and I'm not quite sure where the miscommunication occurred. I really can't speak to that. I just know, historically, when a governor appoints a justice, he'll touch base with the leaders of the opposition, if there are, or even if it's his own party, and say, here's who I'm putting up. Where do y'all stand on this person? Would you vote to reelect him? And typically the candidate's going to want to know that information before they assume that position. So I'm not quite sure where the signals got crossed there.
Well, look, Senator Petersen, they got crossed in the governor's office because obviously he didn't pick the phone up. He didn't call Speaker Howell. He didn't call Majority Leader Tommy Norman. And so, as you said, the appointment of judges lies in the General Assembly, and I think that was kind of a battle there for, who controls what turf. But look, when you've got a tenuous hold on the majority, 21-19, your tiebreakers going the other way, you've got senators retiring that don't owe anything to anybody. You're playing with fire. And look, who's ever in charge of that thing? I don't think they had flushed everybody out. Obviously,
right.
Watkins was saying he was uncomfortable with the fact that Roush had left her job in Fairfax on the circuit court or whatever, and so you can almost see that one. We had your law partner on yesterday, Scott Servo, soon to be joining you in the state Senate, I believe. And he predicted it at 6:30 a.m. yesterday. He said that the Republicans are going to be in for a shocker, and he was right.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that they went forward with the vote because I thought that Senator Watkins had publicly telegraphed what he was going to do. And so, I didn't think they were even going to put it up for a vote, but I don't know. I mean, listen, again, that situation is going to limp along. And I do use the word limp along, and I do think that constitutionally we're kind of in a gray area as to whether or not the governor can keep reappointing every 30 days. And I think we're also in a gray area as to what it means to adjourn sine die. Typically, both bodies agree together. Now, that's not to say it hasn't happened separately before. I was there in 2002 when the House adjourned sine die without asking permission. So, this is what happens when, again, you got a legislative body that is very evenly divided, and then within the Republican caucus there's a lot of distinct personalities, just like there is in the Democratic caucus. I guess just yesterday we did a little better job of holding our numbers together. Well,
you did a fabulous job at that, and definitely you guys won. There's no question. It was a complete victory, game, set, match. We've got elections coming up, Republicans 21-19 right now, and here's what I want to do. I want to come up and do a remote at your office, like we did.
Yes, we got to do that.
And we got to get that. I'm going to call your office today and get that set up. We can get Tribbett in there. We get David in there. We can get Saslaw, and then we can figure out who's going to win what. I think you guys are in big trouble in 21. I can tell you that you guys are not going to win that. But that's
which one is 21, John?
21 is Di Edwards, Don Caldwell. We're
going to win that. I'm telling you right now, we're going to win that.
How are you?
We're going to win it. We're going to win it by at least 5 points.
Oh, there's no way.
Well, maybe you've got some information I don't, but I feel pretty good about John's campaign. And yeah, no, we got lots to talk about. I can't wait.
Okay, we're gonna have that set up. But right now, we got to go to baseball or football because you got football coming up. We got to go to baseball. My dream World Series, Astros, Washington. I'm holding up my end of the bargain. The Astros got a 2.5 game lead. It's the middle of August,
right,
and we're at home. Washington, they lost 6 in a row. They're 5 games out. They're behind in the wild card. I don't think you guys are going to make the playoffs. What happened?
Yeah, a complete implosion. And I think as disappointing as the Redskins have been over the last couple of years, I don't think anybody can match the Nats, the Nationals, for just melting down when they had the easiest division in baseball, when they had the best starting pitching in baseball, when they had Bryce Harper having a career year, and just complete implosion. You know, I can't say I don't watch or listen to every game, so I don't probably know the granular detail as well as I would say for the Redskins. But it's been a bad year, and you know, there's like a curse of DC sports. It's you know, we get these young superstars like Bryce and John Wall and RG3 and Alex Ovechkin, and we ought to be winning championships. And it's as if we just can't get to the next level. We just can't do it. And so I don't see that team making the playoffs. And if that happens, they're probably going to lose Jordan Zimmerman in free agency. Well, they're probably going to lose Desmond, which may not be much of a loss. But, I mean, the team may end up blowing up.
Well, look, they've just dropped another 6 in a row. They're 10 games out of the wild card, so you forget that. They're 4.5 games behind the Mets. I mean, they got a shot because, you know, New York has good pitching, but they don't score. They're not that good of a team. They're, I think, 8 games over 500. So you still got a shot to catch the Mets. You got a lot of games remaining with them, but right now it's looking bleak. And they were the odds-on favorite to get to the World Series. I mean, you looked at the pitching they had, and you're like, who's going to beat this team?
Right. No, you looked at it. We talked about this a few months ago. You were thinking 4 or 5 guys there who had potential for winning 20 games.
Yep. And you ended up with an offer. Okay, well, my Astros hanging in there. Everybody made fun of them at the beginning of the season. We got a 2.5 game lead over the Angels. I think Astros solid pitching. They win at home. You know, somebody asked me today, are they going to win the division? It's like, well, if they end up the final week at home, which they are, they can hang on because they don't win on the road. So we'll have to see how that plays out. If they get in the playoffs, whether or not they can beat Kansas City or some of these teams, I have no idea. But look, you got to get in there. And so far, so good. Let's go to Redskins. Now, Twitter blew up yesterday, and a lot of people made fun of them, but I differ. You know, RG3 came out and said, I'm the best quarterback in the NFL. Everybody made fun of it. But, Chap, I like the fact that he said something, and he's trying to get that mojo back, right?
Yeah, you know what? If you actually watch the quote, what he's saying is, look, when I go out onto the field, in my mind, I'm the best quarterback in the NFL, and that's what I'm trying to be. And he wasn't saying, yeah, objectively by the metrics, I'm the best quarterback, because of course he's not. But he's saying, you know, that's the mentality I'm taking onto the field. And, you know, people have so much free time on their hands for them to grab this and be like, oh, RG3's got such an ego. And I felt like if you actually listen to the quote, he was even acknowledging that he's not been playing all that well, but, you know, he's redoubling his effort. And when he walks out onto the field, he's trying to have confidence, and that's how he expresses it. So, you know, it's much ado about nothing. Look, here's the bottom line. If he plays well and they win, he can say whatever he wants. If they lose, then he's going to sit on the bench. I mean, it's just, it's that simple. I could care less what he says. I've met Robert a couple times. He's a heck of a nice guy. He means well. You know, people that jump on him really need to get a life.
What are you going to do with your tight end situation?
Well, of course, I'm partial to bringing back Chris Cooley because I love Chris. Mm-hmm. You know, just the way it's terrible what happened to Niles Paul. A great kid, you know, was blocking well, good deep threat. But, you know, this happens in the NFL. You got to pick people up off the waiver wire. I saw they picked up a guy who was coaching girls gymnastics in some small town in Iowa or something, and now he's playing tight end for the Washington Redskins. So
everybody's hurt. You got to do something. Okay,
you got to do it.
Final thing we're going to talk about presidential politics. I'm predicting, and I have since May, that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee for the Republicans in 2016. What say you?
John, you were out front on this. I totally tip my hat to you. I will say that I think people are starting to see that there's a pathway for Donald. Obviously the first vote is yet to be cast, but I think what's going to start happening is some of the second-tier people are going to start dropping out, and the coalition, the support's going to have to coalesce a little bit, and at some point, inevitably, one person's going to get a majority of what I'll call the anti-Donald vote. Maybe it's Carly Fiorina, maybe it's, Scott Walker. And at that point, you'll have a regular race like you will have. And meanwhile, the Democrats, who knows? I mean, if Biden gets in, that could shake things up. Otherwise, I think Hillary will end up taking it,
all right.
even with all the problems she's having. So
we're out of time. We'll talk about it when I'm up there. Trump, Biden, that's going to be the race. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. Joe Biden's going to get in that race, and he's going to be the nominee.